General election is 35 days away, and ahead of tonight's first and only vice presidential debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, we want to bring in the director of the Floyd Institute for Public Policy at Franklin and Marshall College. Burwood Yost, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first let's start with the layout of what we can expect tonight. What are the rules and format for tonight's debate?
Well, I think in comparison to the presidential debate, my understanding is that both mics will be open at all times, which is a significant difference from the prior debate. My understanding is also that there will be no live fact checking during the debate by the moderators. That's going to be happening at a site associated with the debate. So I think those two rules in and of themselves will make for a debate that allows for a bit more interaction between the candidates than we probably saw in the presidential debate.
Yeah, we've been seeing both Vance and Walz heavily campaigning, doing media blitzes, taking aim at each other from afar. Tonight, of course, will be very different to see them together. What do we know about their debate experience and styles?
Well, I think there's certainly a contrast in styles. You probably could argue that J.D. Vance is a bit more cerebral and also, he has that Ivy League education. So I think he's got some skills as a debater. He certainly, I think, has sort of I think he can express sort of the Trumpian vision for the Republican Party in kind of a clear way. He's sort of the spokesman for that particular movement at the moment. And I think, Walz is much more homey, but I think he has a lot more experience debating. He's run for office multiple times, for multiple offices. And so, I think it should be a spirited debate, and it will be a contrast in styles. I think we'll expect Walz to be a bit homier, if you will, try to be sort of an all shucks candidate. So we'll see what comes out of that sort of contrast in styles.
Yeah, and of course, neither candidates know the questions or topics they'll get tonight. But 2 weeks ago, we asked J.D. Vance what he's doing to prepare for this debate. We want to play a part of the clip. Take a listen. And you've got the debate coming up. What's your game plan to go up against Tim Walz?
Just trying to study policy as much as possible. I mean, I think the American people, a lot of, unfortunately, I think the Kamala Harris campaign sometimes talks to her fellow Americans like their children. I think Donald Trump and I want to talk to our fellow Americans like fellow citizens and actually talk about public policy that can make their lives better.
Policies and issues should each candidate address tonight?
Well, look, I think they both have some ground to make up with the economy. Certainly, the economy is an advantage for the Trump campaign right now. I think Harris and Walz want to kind of eat away at that advantage. So if Walz can create an effective message around the economy to counter whatever J.D. Vance might put forward, I think that would be important for them. I expect Tim Walz also to push a little bit on health care. We know that Trump and Vance have talked about various things related to the Affordable Care Act, perhaps removing it or replacing it. We also know that women's rights and abortion's part of that health care conversation. So I would expect that Tim Walz is going to not just talk about the economy, but he's also going to push back on health-related issues, including abortion rights. Finally, I think Vance will certainly try to do his best on the economy, articulating a vision for making middle-class people feel better about their financial lives. But I also expect that he's going to hit on immigration pretty hard. He hasn't backed down from statements he's made, even though, we know some of them are false. I expect he continues to hit the immigration button. I think the last thing I would say is that Vance has perhaps one extra hurdle to go that Walz doesn't, and that is Trump is the older candidate now in this race. And I think J.D. Vance is going to have to show that he could do the job if it becomes necessary. I think that's a bigger hurdle for him than Walz at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And vice presidential debates don't usually tip the scales much. But from your standpoint of what you're seeing in the polls, the timing of how close we are to elections and this just being so razor thin close, does this debate matter to the extent of potentially swinging undecided voters, or is this just purely entertainment?
Yeah, they're rarely important and they rarely leave an impression. But look, the main thing here is do no harm. And so I think both candidates want to do their best to represent the top of the tickets and their policies and show that they could do the job if needed, but really do no harm to either themselves or, more importantly, to the top of the ticket.
That's right. All right, Burwood Yost, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight and your time.